इमामिना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला नबीना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला हबीबना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला रहीमिना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला करीमिना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला नबीना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला नबीना सल्ले अला मुहम्मदिन सल्ले अला हबीबना सल्ले अला सल्ले अला नबीना सल्ले Allahu Akbar Allahu Akbar Allahu Akbar أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على السلام حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين
آمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I was discussing about those who turned away during the time of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, those who apostated, and I was talking about what happened in Bahrain. I want to give further details, and then Talha bin Hazrami, who was leading the army, and what happened over there in Bahrain. It is written that Hazrat Allah sent Jalut that take the tribe of Abdul Qais, and from Hajar attack the enemy, and Hazrat Talha with his army went to attack Hutn. And apart from the people of Bahrain, all the idolaters, they gathered together. And then all the Muslims with Tala al-Hazarami, they gathered together, and then they dug trenches, and they would transcend the trenches and then attack the enemy, and then they come back and hold in the trenches. And this is what happened for a number of days. But on one night, the Muslim heard some noises from the enemy area, and then Abdullah bin Hazaf decided to go and find out what was happening after Hazrat Allah was wondering what was happening. And when he returned, he gave the news that the Hazrami people, they were intoxicated, and they were celebrating eating a roasted cow or a goat. And then the Muslims in this state, they went and attacked them, and then they took over their camp. And then some of them, while they were running, some of them were caught up, others were arrested, others were killed, and then the Muslims took whatever they had left behind. Whoever who fled or who managed to flee could only take what he has on him. Hazrat Talha from Khutum and Hudaysha, the condition was that he was running as if he had no life. He went to his horse, and at that time the Muslims had already surrounded the enemies. And then Khutum tried to mount his horse. As he was trying to mount the horse, then Hazrat Qais bin Asim went and apprehended him. Regarding after seizing what the enemies had, the Muslims also left their strongholds out of the trenches, and then they started pursuing the enemy. And then Hazrat Qais Qais' horse was stronger, and then Abjar's horse was running, and then Abjar tried to run after being apprehended, and then he was pursued. And in another narration, it is said that Hazrat Asim struck him with an arrow, and then a spear, and then after that he was bleeding a lot. In the morning, Hazrat Allah started to distribute the bounties among the Muslims, and especially those who had shown strong courage during the war. They were given those expensive clothes of the enemy. Atif bin Munzir, Hazrat Samama bin Qasal, and the likes were given clothes. The clothes which were given to Hazrat Samama, there was a very expensive black robe which he used to wear and then walk around. And after the success of this battle, after this expedition, Hazrat Allah gave him the message of victory and also informed him of where Amr had killed the enemy, the commander. And he gave him the details in the letter, and he wrote that Amma Ba'd, by grace of Allah, Allah the most gracious, He has made us overcome the enemy. They used to drink during the day, and after drinking, then they lost all the consciousness, and then we found them almost unconscious. Apart from a few people, we killed almost all of them, and God helped us to overcome them in this way. And the place of Hajar and all around surrounding areas, Hazrat Allah managed to overtake, to hold those areas, but they remained enemies. They remained stronghold areas of the enemy. And they used to spread the false enemy hold news within the enemies, and then they used to say that the leadership of Medina is not the best. Lutuf Shabani, talking about his tribe of Lamim and Namir, was coming with his enemy. And then Hazrat Abu Bakr, when he was informed of their advancement, he wrote Hazrat Ala and he said that if it is found out after investigation that Banu Sa'ban bin Sha'thalaba, whose leaders had escaped, if they are coming to attack you, and the rogue enemies, they are spreading these enemies, the news within the enemies, and you should make sure that you attack beforehand. Make a surprise attack that they cannot be able to lift their heads again or to attack you in the future. Those who had turned away, the apostates, it is written by some of the historians that the Battle of Jarin, it was during the time of that Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. It is put in that period of time, but other historians, the Battle of Darin is put in during the era of Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. But nevertheless, Darin was an island or one of the Persian areas, which was not very far away from Bahrain. It was Christians who were residing in this area. And Hazrat Allah, after the victory, they sat in the ship and then they went to Darin. And then other people also returned to their tribes. Hazrat Allah al-Hazrami, his tribe, one of the tribe, Bakr bin Awil, those who are Muslims from among them, he told them to attack the enemy. Talha bin Nahas, Amr bin al-Aswad, those two were given the orders to remain there where they were. And then they were told to put watchmen from all the routes of the enemies. And then Hazrat Mismah was also ordered that he should also attack the enemy and pursue them. And then Khasafa at-Tahmi and Hazrat Musanna bil Hartha al-Shabrami, they were also ordered that they should be ready to attack and fight the enemy as well. In Bahrain, there was a lot of opposition, and this role was spread by Musanna. And then with his enemy, he tried to attack. He supported al-Hazrami, and then from Bahrain they went towards northwards. They remained in their mission until they reached to the enemy in Persia. And then they attacked those who had supported the enemy. Those who had remained strong in those areas, they were taken to Hazrat Ala al-Hazrami and they joined hands with Hazrat Azrami. They continued towards northwards following the bank, and then Hazrat Abu Bakr inquired about Harsa, and then Qasim bin Ais said that these are people, this is a person who is not very kind, who is good. And Shabani was a tribe who were also among those who had turned apostate. And then eventually he turned away from the enemy and accepted Islam. And others also accepted Islam, and others remained adamant, but they were stopped to go to their area. And then they returned from where they were advancing, and then they reached Darin. And then by grace of Allah, they were all gathered in one area. Hazrat A'la, he was within the enemy area, and then Bakr bin Wa'il, who had written the letter for him, he delivered the letter, and then they understood that these people, they will believe in Allah and also follow His commands. And then Hazrat Allah, he realized that these people, if they are not going to fight, if they are not more against Islam and not fearing any attack from them, then he told Hazrat Allah, ordered all the Muslims to advance to Dahrain. And then he invited them all to come towards Dahrain. The detail about this will come in the future, and the way it is being mentioned, it was unlikely that it happened this way to be able to cross in the way it is being described. Regarding this, it could be some truth in it, and then there could be some also exaggeration. But in any case, if there is any truth in this, it will be cleared later on. I will mention this later on in the later part of my discussion. But it is saying that the enemies didn't have the boats to come to the island. And realizing this, Hazrat Ala al-Hazrami stood up and then started to gather the people and then addressed them and said that Allah has gathered all the enemies for you, and now He's made them ready to one place near the ocean. And God has already showed you the training before. You already given the training. Now it is up to you to go towards the enemy through the water banks. And because now God has collected them together for you. And Musanna said, we shall do what you are ordering us. And then said, as long as we are alive, we are not going to fear these people. This is what is written in the book of Tabri. The miracle of how the enemies had run away, and where the fountain has sprouted from the it is said this miracle was evident, and then Hazrat Allah had brought them from that area towards the sea, and they were praying and supplicating to Allah that Ya Arhamur Rahim, Ya Kareem, Ya Halim, Ya Ahad, Ya Samad, Ya Hayyu, Ya Muhayyul Maut, Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum, La ilaha illa Ant. That all the merciful Allah, the most merciful, or the most kind, or the most bountiful, or the living being, and that being who gives life to others and revive those who are dead, that one being who is worthy of worship, our Creator, our Sustainer, we seek help from you. Well, it is said that Hazrat Allah, he told all the enemies to go reciting this supplication before Allah, and they all with their behind Tala al-Hazrami, their leader, with their camels, with their horses, they all advanced, and then they crossed the gulf, and it is said they walked by the banks where the camels could travel without any problems. It is also said that there was one load which had disappeared, and that Allah brought it. It is said that in one day, this was a journey which would take one day, but they had covered this long journey within half a day. And in the book of Tabri, it has been told, and the detail is like I've mentioned it. But according to the current historians and the researchers, they say that regarding how they crossed this part of the sea, it is possible that within the Gulf, maybe it was high tide then when they were able to cross, or they had taken some boats to cross. In any case, we don't have a detail anywhere, and many people have written about this regarding how they crossed, but we don't find details how they crossed. But there is no doubt about the fact that the Muslims managed to get Bahrain. How did they manage to arrive? Allah knows best. What remains now is about the miracles that happened. And regarding those, Hazrat Muslim Maud has written in his commentary and has painted a picture for us. And then he cited the example of Hazrat Musa's example, and I want to put that before you right now. Hazrat Muslim Maud, the second Caliph, regarding the migration of Hazrat Musa and how he crossed the Red Sea, giving clarity about what is mentioned in the Holy Quran. He was commenting on this, and then he said that according to the import, according to what is mentioned in the Holy Quran, the people of Bani Israel were intending to go to their promised land. And then as they were going, they were being pursued by the enemy from behind. And then the Israelites were afraid that we are going to be apprehended. And then Hazrat Musa encouraged them and then reassured them that they won't be taken by the enemy. And then he was told to strike his staff, his rod on the water, and then the water disappeared. And then the enemy who were pursuing them, they could not catch them. And then before the tide returned, Musa and the Israelites had crossed, and the enemy was drowned by the return of the tide. All miracles are from God, and it is Allah who shows these miracles. Now Hazrat Musa's holding his staff, his rod, and striking on the water, it is not the rod that caused the miracle that happened. Rather, it is Allah's powers. Therefore, it is not very clear for any words of from the Holy Quran that the sea was split in two halves. Rather, there are two words which have been used in the Holy Quran. One is faraka and infalaqa, and which means to be separated or to get apart. Rather, it is the water which had gone away from the bank, and the Israelites were able to walk through that bank. And it happens, and Napoleon, in the life of Napoleon, it is said that when he attacked Egypt, they passed through Jezer, and as they were passing there, then the tide was returning, and he narrowly escaped. And the miracle in Moses' case, it was that the people of the Israelites, arrived at a time when the tide was high, and then as Moses raised the hand, then the water was about to return, and at the time when the enemy arrived, Hazrat Moses and his people had crossed, and then as they were pursuing, and then as they were just there, then the water returned, and then they drowned. This happens. This is a phenomenon which happens where the water gets far away from the bank, and then everything's clear. And this what happened as what happened in Moses' time, during the time of Hazrat Abu Bakr, because Pharaoh and his army, they arrived at the time when Musa had crossed, and they were drowned, but he survived, Moses and his people. At the time when Pharaoh had arrived, the majority of the Israelites had already gone. And then as he was seeing the enemy getting away from his hands, then they were running to pursue them. But it was the returning of the tide that as they were trying to cross, the water was running fast, and it was difficult for them to either move forward or go back, as they were already in the middle of the sea. And then at the returning of the water, and because it was a high tide, then it also brought them back to the banks. In any case, the people in Hazrat Abu Bakr's time, they arrived in Bahrain. It could be like what happened in the time of Moses, but I carry on to tell you what happened, that when they got there, during the time of Hazrat Abu Bakr, they started the war, and then most of those who had turned away from Islam, they were killed, and none survived. And those who survived, they were either taken as prisoners of war, and they got about bounties of 2,000 dinar. And of course, it took them about a whole day to get to the enemy. And then after that, they returned home. Hazrat Samama bin Usal was martyred, and regarding his martyrdom, it is said that Hazrat Allah bin Hazrat Hazrami, apart from those who wanted to stay behind, he brought them. And Hazrat Samama was among those who were returning. And then Hazratullah bin Hazaf says that we were bin Qais bin Thalaba's well, and the people saw Samama, and then they saw them wearing a robe, and this was the robe which was given to him as a bounty, as spoils of war. And then the people of that tribe, they sent their envoy to Hazrat Samama, inquiring where he got it from. And then they asked that, are you the one who killed our leader, or someone else killed him? Because they realized that was a robe for their leader. And then Hazrat Samama told them that I received these as spoils of war. And then they asked him, are you the one who killed him? And he said, no, though I wished to kill him, but I didn't kill him. But then he inquired, then how did you get this robe? And then he said, like I've already told you, I received this as spoils of war. And then as the person was returning, he told them what he was told by Samama. And then the entire tribe came to Hazrat Samama, and they surrounded him. And then they were impugning, they were saying that it is you who killed Samama. And then he said, I just received this as spoils of war. And then they told him that this can only be taken by that one who killed him, who killed the leader. And then he said, I received it from the Lord, from the properties of your leader. And then they killed him. And then Hazrat Su'ab bin Muqarrin, also there was an expedition towards him, toward these tribesmen. And then Hazrat Abu Bakr said he gave Hazrat Suwaid's, he gave a flag to Suwaid, and then told them to go to the people of Tayama. Ittihama in Arabic meaning means a lot of heat, or a hot place. In East and West, there is a plain, there is a plateau which is called Tamama. It is a lowland, and it was about 300 kilometers away from Sana'a, and it spread all the way to the Arabian borders. This was an island then, which was called Dar Yamama. And Hazrat Suwaid, regarding a brief introduction about him, his father was Muqarran bin Ais, and from the tribe of Muzaina. And he was normally known as Adi, or Abu Adi, He was also known as Abu Qudayt. He accepted Islam in early days, and he also participated in the battle of the ditch with the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He also remained with the Holy Prophet in all other battles. He was the brother of Nu'man bin Muqarrin, who played a great role in the conquest of Iranian Empire and other areas there. Regarding Hazrat Said's going to Tihama and his advancement with the army, in the books of history we don't have further details or many details of what happened, but we understand and we find a record of the apostates, and it is said that in the 10th year of Hijrah, after the Hajjatul Wada, the Holy Prophet ﷺ had appointed those people who were collectors of zakat, and he had distributed Yemen in 7 portions. Ta'ala was going to the Yemen, and in Tamama there were only 2 major tribes, Aq and Ashar tribes. And in the book of Tabri, it is written that Hazrat Attab bin Asil and also Osman bin As, they wrote Hazrat Abu Bakr that in our area there is a lot of those who had apostate, who are attacking the Muslims. I've already talked about this, that even everybody attacked Muslims, not only those who had apostated. Rather, even Khalid bin Asir, he was also sent to pursue the people of this area, and the people of Khuda and Qinana, the different groups from there, the people of Shanut and from other tribes. They turned against the Muslims, and Hazrat Khalid bin Asir defeated all of them, and then they all scattered, and most of them were killed, and the people of Shanuk, they were killed more than other people, and their tribesmen remained very few in number. And that Abab, this area of Abab was cleared of enemies, and then they all fled, and most of them, they returned to Islam. And we also have in another narration that the Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after his death, in the place of Aqqa, the people of Aqqa and Ashar, they turned away, they apostated. And when they received the news of the death of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many people, and from these tribes and the people of Hazm tribe, they also joined hands. And then from the place called Alab, they camped from all that area, and then they were prepared to attack the Muslims, and they didn't have any leader. This is a place between Arab and Bahrain. Taib bin A'la informed Hazrat Abu Bakr about this advancement, and after informing him, Hazrat Tahir, Asluk, and Aki, there were these people who did not apostate, and when they got to the place called Alab, they met the enemy, and then after fierce battle, the Muslims managed to overcome them, and then most of them were killed by the Muslims. And the news, when the news spread among the enemies, they all laid down the arms, and the Muslims won. And it is written that Tahir bin A'la played a major role in overcoming the enemy, because Tahama was appointed by the Holy Prophet ﷺ in that area, which was a place of Aq and Qasha. And as Abu Bakr gave an order to Shaq to go there, and then he ordered him to gather these tribesmen and wait for his orders. Hazrat Aisha, at the time of the death of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he was in Hazar Maut. He was in Sakasik and Sukun. He was the Amir of that area before the death of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. And to the place of Bazira, he said Jalil bin Abdullah al-Majidi. He told him to return into that area and told him that get those steadfast Muslims and fight those who have turned away from Islam. And they reached the tribe of Qasim, and then they pursued the enemy there. Yazir went as ordered by Sayyid Abu Bakr, and Siddiq Akbar had given him the orders, and then he managed to overcome the enemy, and then they scattered. Well, I was talking about this battle, and this my discussion ends here, and I'll try to carry on talking about those who have passed away recently from among community members. One of them is the member from Burkina Faso, Gyarajun. On the 11th of June in the evening, in his area, a place called Bori, is a village where he was attacked by the enemy, where the terrorists attacked him, and many other people also were killed, and 2 Ahmadi young youth that were killed were working there, and they died on the spot. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. One of them, his name is Diko Zakaria. He was 32 years old, and he was from Dori. He was working as a Qaid Khudam Ahmadiyya in that region. He also went to Hifzul Quran, and he remained there for some time, and then he returned, and he was always ready and available for Jamaat service. He was regular in his 5 daily prayers. He is someone who offered his Tajud prayers all the time. He gave his chanda on time, and whatever income he had besides even his monthly income, he would also pay out of that. He had a sincere love for Khilafat, and he would listen to the Friday sermon and also other programs. And the local missionary from there writes, and then he said that my last meeting with him, he said to me, and he had a strong wish to meet the Khalifa of the time, and he was wondering when he will be able to meet the Khalifa. And then the Muallim is writing that he was a very exemplary Khadim. He's been survived by a wife and 2 daughters. And the second one I'm talking about today was Mr. Diku Musa. He was 34 years old, and at that time he was the Khudam Ahmadiyya in Sentinga region. He's the person who was always ahead in the programs, and he would encourage others to take part in the Jamaat programs. He was regular in Chanda payments, and there was no mosque in the area where he was, and he organized a center where they could offer prayers. He used to write to me regularly. He was always regular in going in Tabligh programs, and he's also been survived by a family, one wife, and then also the daughters and children. By grace of God, the Amir of the Mir Jamaat writes about the deceased people. Diko Ahmad was Borima's brother, who he was the brother is in charge of the radio there, and Ahmadiyya went to their family through Ibrahim Bunti Sahib. He was a very staunch Ahmadi, and in the region of Dori, he remained Zaim Ansarullah there in that region. He passed away in 2011, and after him, Amir Sab writes that since 2015, there's a lot of terrorist attacks, and in the northern part there's a lot of destruction, and many people have been displaced, and we pray that may Allah help them, and may Allah also help the entire world, because the political situation of the world, it is creating a lot of terrorists. May Allah save the entire world. May Allah enable the entire world to come back to their senses. Now I'll be talking about Mr. Bloch Sahib, who is from Umarkot in Sindh. He also passed away recently. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. He's a Blochi from Dera Ghazi Khan. He was born there, and in 1934 Hazrat Ghulam Rasul Rajiki preached there, and out of his preaching Ahmadiyyat went into their family. Then in Umarkot, where we have Tariq Jadid's land, for a long time he remained in Rabwa for about 6 years, and he also served in different capacities. He was a Mosi. He has been survived by a wife and 7 children, boys and girls. Shabir Saab is in Ivory Coast, serving as a missionary there, and being in the field, he was not able to participate in his father's janaza and funeral prayers. And of course his two sons are Murabbiya Silsila. They are working as devotees of life. And Shabir Saab, who is a missionary, regarding the deceased, that he had a lot of qualities. We found him very regular in his prayers, and after the morning prayers, after Fajr, he would recite in a loud voice. He had recite the Holy Quran in loud voices, and then he always enjoined me to remember 2 things: that to be very faithful and loyal to Khilafat, and also to ensure that he observed his devotion at all times. Many people have come to pay their respects after his death. Even Hindus, non-Ahmadis, non-Muslims as well have come to pay their respects. And then, though our father has passed away, but he used to serve a lot of poor people and the orphans. I also talk about Aziza Farouk, who was the daughter of Mr. Farouk. She passed away recently. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. This girl, when she was 11 years old, she was paralyzed due to electric shocks. She did not stop. She carried on with though she didn't have 2 hands, they were paralyzed. She could write with her mouth. Then she would also try to write with her hands. And then after some time, she shifted to Rabwa, and then she continued with her education. And then she passed BA in 2018, and also she did a BA in Arabic. And also she served in Tahir Heart Institute after graduation. She would recite the Holy Quran. She learned the Holy Quran, and then she would get 100% in Quranic tests. She's been teaching in the area. She's been survived by a mother, 2 sisters, and a brother. May Allah help the entire family to bear this loss with fortitude. Amen. The next one I'll go on to mention is Mr. Anzumana Atara Sahib. He was serving in Ivory Coast. He was working in Masadogo. He's been serving there, and in recent days he also passed away. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. The missionary in charge from there writes that the deceased was a very humble, simple person, very regular in prayers, and always very punctual. And he used to keep fast Monday and Thursdays. He used to observe Nafal prayers. And he had a very undying love for Khilafat. In 1997, through a dream, he accepted Islam Ahmadiyyat, and he saw in a dream that he was in Nasir, and he was going to Nasir, and then he was having a sword and then going reciting La ilaha illallah. And after one day of this dream, he realized that Umar Ma'az Sahib, a missionary, he had come to Nasir to preach there. And he also went to Nasir. And then when he listened to the message, then he accepted Ahmadiyyat. And then he realized that this is the event which I saw in the dream. And then he said, this is the place where I can go to get some true faith. He has been serving as a Muallim Silsila for a long time there. And he also dedicated and devoted his life to serve the community. And in 2002, when there was a lot of fighting and unrest in the country, then the Muallim arranged for the education of the members there, and he remained connected with the center, and he did not leave the village. And then he was able to construct a mosque there, or to see the construction of that mosque, and also train the members there. And then on the national level, he would bring people from his area and they would participate in the center. He also had an opportunity to participate in one of the conventions here during the time of the fourth Caliph, and he met him. And there was also a program in the French Mulakat with Huzur, the fourth Caliph, and then he was very happy about this Mulakat. And he was telling the people of his village that this is the best moment of my life which I had with the fourth Caliph, and I can't have words to express this. And when I appointed him in 2008 in Burkina Faso, when I toured there, I met him, and then he said, when he met me, he said, I'm meeting you. And I'm meeting you because of my new life that I received. And because of your tour, God is giving me another opportunity to meet a Khalifa. And then he said, what I mean by a second life is that I was very sick 2 months before, and I almost died. And I saw in my dream that he saw me rubbing his head. I was putting my hand on his head. And then he felt that all the illness left his body. And then he said, when I woke up, I had recovered from all the ailments, all the disease I was suffering from. So when I made the tour there, he told me that practically since I saw what I saw in the dream, I want you to put your head over my head. This is a person who was very devout to Ahmadiyyat and who loved Khilafat and Jamaat Ahmadiyya very much. And then he said, the life which I received, my second life, is so that I can serve the community. And then until the death time, he lived until he was 94, but even till his death he was able to work. And when I went in 2008 in Ghana, he also came to see me. He participated in the Jubilee Jalsa in Ghana, and he was very happy to meet me again. The missionary called Menduko Sahib writes and said that he is someone who loved the missionaries from Pakistan. He would meet them with a lot of respect. He was very kind, and held them in high esteem. He's someone who was very regular in his chanda payments, and he would pay all his dues on time. It is said that when I went on my tour, and he said that after this, I think I'm going to die. Then he said, where are you going? First he said, I'm going after this. He said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to die. I'm so happy that I'll have to go and receive my biggest reward from Allah. And then before his death, he says, I have only 1 week's contract with Allah. And he woke up on Friday, and he performed his wudu, and after performing his wudu, he passed away at that same spot after 1 week, as he had said. He's someone who was very loyal. Now look, we have people in all areas. These are the kind of people who have been given to the Prince Messiah ﷺ. They are spreading the message of Islam, and Allah is treating them and rewarding them in this way. May Allah also enable us to emulate the examples. He's been survived by 5 sons and 5 daughters. They are all firm on Ahmadiyyat. May Allah enable them to remain firm on Ahmadiyyat. May Allah enable them to follow on the footsteps of their father. Of course, like I already said before, after the Friday sermon, I will be leading their funeral prayers in absentia for all the deceased.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر.
ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للقوم الظالمين ونجنا برحمتك من القوم الكافرين.
Our Lord, make us not a trial for the wrongdoing people, and deliver us by thy mercy from the disbelieving people.
Al-Wasiyat, or the Will, was written by the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, Mirza Ahmad, in 1905. In this year, the promised Messiah received many revelations which foretold of his approaching end. In the book, the promised Messiah ﷺ mentioned the institution of Khilafat that will emerge after his departure and named it as the second manifestation. The book also covers the topic of Nizam-i-Wasiyat, which is based on pledging and dedicating at least 1/10 of a devoted Ahmadi's income. In the book, the promised Messiah stated that those of his true and devoted followers who have in truth forsaken the world and have brought about a true and sincere transformation within themselves will be buried in Bahisti Makbara, or a heavenly graveyard. And that second manifestation cannot come unless I depart. And when I depart, God will send that second manifestation for you, which shall always stay with you, just as promised by God in Brahini Ahmadiyya. Here another matter deserves mentioning, which I have already spoken about, and the matter in question is that God has informed me about my death. He addressed me, and very few days are left. To read the full book and other books of the promised Messiah alayhi salam, please visit www.alislam.org.
À quoi bon écrire des milliers de vers si mon but n'est pas de te plaire? Je voudrais crier au monde entier que tu es ma raison d'être. Oh mon Allah, mon être se soumet à toi. Je te dédie ma vie, mes nuits et mes jours, mon âme ne vit que pour mendier ton amour. Allah, ta douce présence envahit l'immense désert de ma vie, faisant d'elle un merveilleux jardin où se répand ton parfum. Oh mon Allah, ma vie entière dépend de toi. Les anges en sont témoins, je t'appartiens. Guère ne passe un jour sans que je mendie ton amour. Quand devant moi surgit l'arc-en-ciel, ses couleurs te dessinent dans mon cœur. Quand le soleil se couche sur la mer, il me décrit ta splendeur. Oh mon Allah, ta pensée me comble de joie. En me couvrant d'amour, tu m'enrichis. Ton amour, Allah, est le trésor de ma vie. Oh mon Allah, ma vie entière dépend de toi. Les anges en sont témoins, Je t'appartiens, guère ne passe un jour sans que je mendie ton amour. Mon âme ne vit que pour mendier ton amour.
Can I pay tribute to the Ahmadiyya community for the way it has shown great leadership across the world in championing the cause of peace through peace symposiums and the teachings of your community.
I applaud and support the Ahmadiyya Muslim community with its total commitment to peace and interfaith harmony.
It was very evident to me how prosperous your community is, how charitable they are, how diligent they are, and how courageous they are in the face of adversity in many countries throughout the world.
How unfortunate is the one who does not believe in that which has come from the mouth of God and which I have set forth. If you desire that God should be pleased with you in heaven, unite with one another as though you were brothers from the same womb. The one who most forgives the transgressions of his brother is the most honorable among you. Unfortunate is the one who is obstinate and does not forgive. Such a person has no part in me. Be very fearful of God's curse, for he is holy and jealous. An evildoer cannot attain nearness to God. One who is arrogant cannot attain nearness to God. A wrongdoer cannot attain nearness to God. He who is unfaithful cannot attain nearness to God. Every such person who is not jealously protective for the sake of God's name cannot attain his nearness. Those who fall upon the world like dogs, ants, and vultures, and find comfort in the world, cannot attain nearness to God.
Love for all, hatred for none. Let's make it happen.
The religion that claims to be from God must show signs of being from God and should bear God's seal, which should attest the fact that it is from Him. Islam is such a religion that God, who is hidden, is known through this religion and manifests Himself to the true followers of this religion. A true religion is supported by the hand of God, and through such religion, God manifests Himself that He exists. The religions that depend entirely upon stories are only a form of idol worship. Such religions do not possess the spirit of truth. If God is alive as He was, and speaks and hears as He did, there is no reason why He should continue to be silent, as if He does not exist. If He does not speak in this age, then equally and certainly He does not hear either. In other words, He is now nothing. That religion alone is true, which demonstrates that God hears and speaks in this age also. In a true religion, God attests His existence through His speaking.
La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah.
Bitcoin getting crushed again. It is now off 16% since hitting all-time highs earlier this month.
But the bank also pointed to tens of billions of pounds in extra savings by households who have not been able to spend, but at some point could be unleashed. Another much-needed shot in the arm.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Focus on Finance. In this new series of programs, we will inshallah take a closer look at the fascinating world of finance. We will be covering a wide range of topics and inshallah explain in simple terms some of the complex concepts that we find in finance. We will, for example, in the next program, look at the various economic systems that there are in the world and also look at the Islamic economic system. In each program, we will hear from experts, from the general public, and inshallah in future programs we hope to hear from you, dear viewer, and hear your views and answer your questions. This week I'm joined in the studio by Murabi Shamim Jamal Ahmad, who is a missionary based in Mauritius, and Niazi Ulash, an accountant by profession. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
A wise person once said a good place to start is at the beginning. So for Focus on Finance, our first program will be on what is finance and why it is important. Earlier on in the week, we asked some members of the general public what they thought finance was. Let's hear what they had to say.
C'est l'économie pays. Roulement, le travail.
Tout ce qui a rapport à l'argent, je veux dire, acheter des choses. Ça peut être des choses basiques, je veux dire, pour manger, tout ça, mais les propriétés, voilà.
Oui, tout ce qui contient l'argent. L'argent, bien sûr. À l'idée, finance, comment nous, sur les taxis, pensez qu'il est bien difficile à faire, on va dire, pour gagner. Pour trouver finance là tous les jours. Et le dia est terrible, on va dire, nous faisons travailler une journée, à soir les jours. Pour pouvoir besoin la case.
Alors, finance, ça veut dire ça qu'on veut comprendre là. On va dire en général là. En général, il travaille, pour travail, même pour la case, même. On va parler moi. Du secteur. Du secteur en général.
Ben, finance, il concerne l'argent, il concerne la manière qu'il l'argent a gérer dans le pays, hein, parce que l'argent se valeur, c'est la Banque Maurice qui donne ce valeur. Donc, finance, pour moi, il englobe tout ce qui est attrait avec donne ce valeur à l'argent.
So some interesting views from the public there. Niazi Saib, from your perspective, what is finance?
Depending on whom you ask, the definition of finance widely varies, as everyone speaks of finance by reference to what it means to him or her, often at a given time, as we've seen in the interviews. The central point, however, is that it has to do with money, or monetary value, or simply wealth. Finance refers to the broad framework that deals with how you earn money, spend money, save and invest your money in order to build wealth. And it is my view that finance is as relevant to an individual as it is to an organization, a company, and to countries. It is relevant to any social construct that is involved at some point in time with the transfer or preservation of monetary value. So for me, finance deals as much with the money in your wallet as it deals with more sophisticated matters at country level or at company level.
So in summary, it's everything around money and the management of money and the transfer of money in society.
Yeah, it's a broadly encompassing concept.
Yeah, I think that's how most people would understand it. Rabbi Shamim, from the Islamic perspective, what is finance and how important does finance play a role in Islam itself?
Shafiq said, quite surprisingly, the Holy Quran is a religious book by its nature, but it has spoken extensively on finance, on money, as we've just defined finance being anything related to money. So the Holy Quran has spoken at length on this subject. And the Holy Quran even has instructed believers that they have to manage their finances in a responsible way and in the best possible way. So in Islam, the believers have been given a list of do's and don'ts concerning money. how to earn it, how to spend it, and also most importantly, how to use money or how to deal with finance in such a way that we can achieve the true purpose of our life, which is fulfilling the rights of our Creator and the rights of the creation. This basically is something quite extraordinary from an Islamic perspective, that we use money and finance, which is a very important way, which will enable us to achieve and realize the true objective of our existence here on earth.
Yeah, and that's from the Islamic perspective. In the secular world, in economics and so on, what other aspects or highlights around finance that you think are important, that makes finance important in today's day and age?
Well, I think my first thing is actually to react to what Murabbi Shamim just said. It is quite astounding when we hear what Islam says about it, simply by the number of aspects in which it just dovetails with what we see in the secular world. Today in finance, I think the main difference would be, apart from using money for your own purposes and for the purposes of advancing humankind, which is what Murabbi Sahib just said, I think what we see today in terms of money in the secular world is that money is often used as well as an end in itself. Whereas I see the difference with Islam is that it's a means to an end. So today, if you look at finance today, you talk about the economic crisis, etc. What we find is that people have got so sophisticated around money that often in certain situations, we find deals being done and banks going bust and people losing a lot of money they've saved in some sophisticated instruments. So it tells me that, yes, finance today has got very complex, and it makes me wonder that whether there needs to be a return to basics in terms of finance, in terms of money.
Yeah. Well, inshallah, we'll be covering some of these complexities, as I've said, in future programs, not least in one of the programs where inshallah we'll be looking at what is money and how it's created, and then how the banking system works. But in Islam itself, it is important, finance and how to use it, and there are some principles which you've touched on, but there are also other principles and concepts that Islam, that Allah teaches us in the Quran. For the interest, I think, is one, and perhaps zakat. Can you please tell us a little bit more about this?
Well, basically, Shafiq said, when we talk about money and wealth, so contrary to some other religion, Islam does not regard wealth as an obstacle to moral and spiritual progress. As we've just mentioned, it is a means actually to achieve that progress. Islam does not promote monasticism, to live in seclusion, not to be involved in the daily life in the society, to work and to make a living. Islam does not promote such a lifestyle. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, clearly said, La rahbaniyata fil Islam. There is no monasticism or living in seclusion in Islam. This is very important that we should highlight this point. And secondly, we're talking about money and wealth. So Islam does not stop believers from enjoying, the good things of this world, which can be acquired partially through wealth, through money. We all know this prayer. We've been reading it in our salat every day. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana. O our Lord, give us the good things of this world. Wa fil akhirati hasana. And also the good things of the world to come, the hereafter. وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ, and save us from the hellfire. So the Holy Quran does not stop believers from acquiring the good things that were created by Allah Ta'ala for our comfort. And also Islam recognizes a need for man to deal with money, to work, to earn, to sustain himself and his family. Very clearly the Holy Quran states in the 2nd chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah, that the man in the house is the head of the family. He has to work, he has to earn and sustain him and his child and his children and wife. So, but the Holy Quran and Islam stresses on the fact that to acquire wealth, is not the main goal in life. This is where really we draw a line with what we see today in the society around us. Like Niazi Sahib just mentioned, Islam says that alongside when we acquire wealth and we acquire money, there's a purpose behind that. And one of the main purpose, as I highlighted in the beginning, is to serve the poor, the destitute in the society. And the Holy Quran, in many places, Allah, the Almighty, has promised great blessings for those who use their wealth, to seek Allah's pleasure by serving His creation. And the Holy Quran briefly has also, very severely warned those who engage blindly in those materialistic pursuits. The Holy Quran and Islam, God tells us in the Holy Quran that, all this blind rat race, will end in anguish and despair, because one day you will have eventually to leave everything behind you. So Shafiq said, in a nutshell, since the Holy Quran, Islam recognizes the need, the importance of finance, of wealth in the running of the society, so it has laid down clear instructions concerning several aspects related to the management of wealth. Like you mentioned, interest and zakat. So both at an individual level, also at the government level, instructions and principles concerning trade, concerning interest, concerning the regulation of the market, inheritance, taxes, and so on and so forth. So inshallah, going ahead, we'll have the opportunity to speak on some of those important Islamic principles about money and the economy in general.
Jazakallah, it's a wealth of future topics to be covered. Some of the aspects that Shamim Sahib were talking about the social aspects of finance and the benevolence and charity. I wonder if you share my view that, or my observation, that the capitalistic world is moving towards that. You have some ESG, these CSRs as they call it in the jargon, and some high-profile billionaires, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, etc., who are making a big play of being philanthropists, giving their money to charities and so on. Is this a move toward, is this a recognition of the shortfalls of capitalism in your view, or a move towards Islamic values?
Well, definitely. I think it's a move in the right direction. I think it is the need of the hour. If we look at the situation the world is in today, we can, without fear of being very mistaken, say that they are doing the right move around 15 centuries after Islam. Okay, already stated what needs to be done, but it's a good thing. So in fact, if we just go maybe a couple of decades ago, you find that in the era of business, okay, let's say in the 80s, 90s, even up to the early 2000s, the focus really was being bigger, richer, better, controlling more, etc. And as businesses became better, as the inequalities, okay, just became deeper, we find that this is when the laws around monopolies or too much power, etc., started being enacted to break it. Why? It's simply because that wealth amassed by the few, which is a hallmark of capitalism, started showing its shortcomings. There were certain social problems created by that, certain safety, security problems. Now we see in the current day and age, just look recently, there were the Paris Accords which were signed. People are talking about the climate warming, and I think there is a general consensus that is real. So money is being diverted to take care of the creation of God, which is nature, right? People are talking about sustainability more, and that was something which would be riled upon just a decade ago. Today in the laws in Mauritius, for instance, and in many countries, there is a requirement for companies to pay certain taxes which will go towards corporate social responsibility. Increasingly, corporations are realizing and countries are realizing that there needs to be a way to redistribute income so that the vulnerable in society have a fighting chance or a decent living wage. The debate in the world today is about a universal basic income. So, and all these things, when you look at it from an ethical perspective, is something which makes sense. But it is something which made sense all along in Islam for for centuries. And I think it is just a recognition that the world is coming to the realization that the blind pursuit of wealth to the expense of anything else is just not sustainable.
Definitely.
And as you rightly said, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and I was reading more recently, Daniel Craig, the Bond 007 actor, is saying that he thinks he's not going to let his kids inherit most of his fortune because it's just immoral. And I was reading that today, Warren Buffett was saying, it is okay to leave enough wealth to your kids for them to be able to do anything they want, but not that much wealth that they will not want to do anything. So I think it's the world is moving in this direction. Is it moving at the same pace in other quarters of the world? No. But I think there is a general awareness happening, which I think is a good thing.
Except adding on what Naseb just said, it's quite amazing how, without knowing it, those, materialistic people, they are espousing Islamic principles. Talking about, the distribution of wealth among children. This was something that was initiated 14, 15 centuries ago by the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The illiterate Prophet of Arabia, who knew nothing, who according to the West knew nothing, seated in the desert, with some Bedouins, giving the world such principles, economic principles, that today, in the 21st century, big experts and, directors of big companies, they are coming to realize that actually, Niazi Sahib spoke about, the wealth in the hands of a few. But if you look at a simple glance at the economic system of Islam, inshallah we'll talk about that. The very purpose of that is to avoid this, that accumulation of wealth. It's really amazing to see how unknowingly they are espousing those principles that will bring equity and peace in the society.
I think let's move on. I had the privilege of speaking to an expert, the economics editor of Review of Religions, Ahmed Daniel Arif Sahib, who's based in London. And I spoke to him earlier and I asked him initially just to introduce himself. Let's hear what he had to say.
Well, first of all, I was born and I brought up in France, so I've been really interested in economic issues more generally. And I've studied economics up to a master's degree. After that, I took some free time to write some books and some articles in French as well as in English. The first one was in 2016, and it was entitled Islam and Capitalism, and the second one on the economic history of early Islam.
Daniel Sahib, what is finance and economics?
So although they are often taught and presented as separate disciplines, economics and finance are interrelated and inform and influence each other. And the focus of economics is more on the big picture, I would say, or general questions about human behavior around the allocation of what we call the real resources. And so at its very heart, I believe economics is the study of people. So it seeks to explain, what drives human behavior, decisions and reactions when faced with difficulties and successes. So it combines, politics, sociology, psychology, but also history. The focus of finance is slightly different. It is derived from economics, but more specifically, it involves assessing money, credit, investments, and other aspects of the financial systems. But again, as I said, economics and finance seems to be converging in some respects. They are interrelated disciplines that inform each other, even if the specifics are different. So they both affect our daily lives in both obvious and subtle ways. So from an individual perspective, economics frames many choices we have to make about work, consumption, and how much to save, for example. And our lives are also influenced by what we call the macroeconomic trends, such as inflation, which is simply put the continuous increase in price prices, but also interest rates, economic growth, employment prospects, which is affecting our living standards. But I think one more thing to add is that it's always forgotten, but economics as a discipline was originally the science of managing the household. Then it became a subset of religious, theological, ethical, and philosophical disciplines. So it also have an important moral and ethical component. Obviously, little by little, it seems to have become something quite different, but I'm always taking the example of Adam Smith, which is the so-called theorist of modern capitalism. So who knows that he was first and foremost a professor of moral philosophy. And contrary to many assumptions, his work entitled, his most famous book, The Wealth of Nations, it was not written to show us how to make a lot of money, but rather how to promote fair and equitable relationships between human beings. So the message hidden in all economic discourses, economic textbooks, is, I believe, rooted in ethics and has to do with human values and the kind of society we want to build.
In your experience, how does the general public view finance?
Generally speaking, people think it's a very technical discipline because it involves figures. But as I said to you, it also, it's at its very heart, it's also about the study of people. It seeks to explain, what drives human behavior, decisions. It combines politics, sociology, but also psychology, but also history. So this is why it is perceived as technical, but this is why it is. That's why it's so interesting at the same time.
How would you describe or define finance?
Well, finance is more the techniques, or I would say the tools of managing money, as you said. So as a discipline, it is derived from economics, but more specifically, it involves assessing money, credit, investments, but some other aspects of the financial systems.
So some interesting points from Daniel Sahib there, very much in line with what we were discussing, what finance is and so on. Inshallah, we'll be hearing a lot more from him in future programs. The interview was a bit longer, and he's a wealth of information about economics. Niazi Sahib, looking forward to the future programs, what other topics are you looking forward to that the viewers can look forward to in the series Focus on Finance?
Yeah. Thanks, Shafiq Sahib. I think I would be interested to explore further areas like banking, credit, investment, how to manage your personal finances. Mm-hmm. It might seem very simple, but definitely it is an area where people could do more. Also, probably around careers in finance, mm-hmm. And just so people understand maybe how the career of finance is evolving, and what are the sort of basic skills you need to thrive in such a field going in the future. And eventually, I think any series of programs will be incomplete if we don't talk about countries' finances and probably how individual finances, corporate finance, the country finance, how they all merge together. Mm-hmm. And if there are any better ways than what we see today of managing, of running, of delivering financial services, which takes into account the interests of everyone, mm-hmm. and every single person towards an objective of prosperity.
Oh, excellent. And from your side, Shamim Sahib?
Shafiq Sahib, well, when we'll be studying or going through all the topics that Niazi mentioned, surely we will be highlighting the shortcomings and what is not working. Mm-hmm. So me, personally, I look forward to present the economic system in Islam as the solution for what we are seeing today. We will, inshallah, when we talk about interest and and capitalism, we will see how there are, shortcomings, and there are things that could be done in a better way, as we've talked about that earlier. So I will look forward to present those principles that were mentioned in 15 centuries ago, but are relevant in today's society, in today's financial world. And these principles, as they are God-given, we believe they are God-given, so we will try to portray those principles to convince our viewers that this actually is the only solution, that they have to espouse those principles if they want to achieve prosperity, as Nazi just said.
No, thank you. I also look forward to those topics. Personally, I'm looking forward to the whole concept of money itself. What is money? How the banking system works, and the surprising fact that many people don't realize is how money is created and how much of it is based on a belief system rather than actual tangible things that you can hold. And it's surprising, and it's something that even in the financial world, many people don't realize that that's the reality, and then contrasting it with the Islamic system. Thank you very much. So it remains for me to say a big jazakumullah to our panelists in the studio today, Niazi Sahib, Shamim Jamal Ahmad Sahib, jazakumullah, and a big jazakumullah also to Daniel Arif Sahib in London, who, as I said, we'll be hearing more from him in future programs. Jazakumullah for your attention, and I hope you found it very useful and informative. And I hope you can join us, inshallah, for future programs on Focus on Finance. Assalamu alaikum.
عابدين إذ هدانا أجمعين وارتضانا مسلمين نحمد الله الذي قد أرسل الهادي محمد صفوة الخلق الممجد رحمة للعالمين سيد الأكوان طه وأعز الخلق جاها عنده المجد تناهى رغم أنف الكافرين سيد الأكوان طه وأعز الخلق جاها عنده المجد تناهى رغم أنف الكافرين خاتم الرسل الكرام وسنا كل الأنام دينه دين السلام والحجال المبصرين هو شمس الكائنات جاءنا بالمعجزات والهدى والبينات فانظروا الذكر المبين وانظروا الموعود فينا إذ أتى في الآخرين بعد خير العالمين تجد الحق اليقين وانظروا الموعود فينا إذ أتى في الآخرين بعد خير العالمين تجد الحق اليقين بدر هذا الكون هلا وظلام الجهل ولا مرحبا أهلا وسهلا بإمام المسلمين بدر هذا الكون هلا وظلام الجهل ولا مرحبا أهلا وسهلا بإمام المسلمين ليس مهدي سواه في تقاه وعلاه خالق الكون اصطفاه فرأى الروح الأمينا ليس مهدي سواه في تقاه وعلاه خالق الكون اصطفاه فرأى الروح الأمينا داعي الله العظيم جئت بالخير العميم للمسود والزعيم وجميع العالمين يا عباد الله هبوا ونداء الحق لبوا ليس غير الله رب فاعبدوه مخلصين يا عباد الله هبوا ونداء الحق لبوا ليس غير الله رب فاعبدوه مخلصين.
Coming next after the break, Hafiz Fazl Rabi teaches the correct pronunciation of the Holy Quran in Al-Tartil.
ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما.
Our Lord, grant us of our wives and children the delight of our eyes, and make us a model for the righteous.
I admire your community, your creed, love for all, hatred for none. And I admire your leadership in this difficult world that we live in.
We in Liberia have always known the Ahmadiyya Muslim community as one that teaches and lives by example when it comes to religious tolerance and contribution to the development of the mind, the body, and the spirit.
Is the force for good which the Ahmadi community are. By encouraging interfaith dialogue through constructive debate and defending pure Islam, you propagate peace, tolerance, and love.
sallallahu alayhi wa sallam nabi Allah Muhammad yamina shira kanu yamina suje kanu ankana benyina.
أعوذ
بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ورتل القرآن ترتيلا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, this is lesson 29 and this is about alif zaida, excessive alif in between the letters of a word. Now, points to remember that there are some words in the Holy Quran which contains an excessive alif, alif zaida. And there are two kinds of such words. Type 1, where excessive alif comes in between the letters of a word. And the type 2, where an excessive alif comes at the end of a word. And we will practice in the next lesson as well. Now, in terms of pronunciation, there are two categories, two types of such words. Type 1, where an excessive alif must not be recited either in the continuation of recitation or making a pause at such words. And you will see the examples how the pronunciation will take place. And the type 2, where an excessive alif will not be recited if the recitation is continued, but it will be read out if one make a pause at such words. Okay, so there are two categories, two kinds, two types in terms of pronunciation, where excessive alif will not be recited at all, whether in continuation of the recitation or making a pause. And at some places, when we make a pause, then that excessive alif will be recited, otherwise not. Now, in this lesson, we shall practice those words where an excessive alif must not be recited. Okay? Remember, such a word may or may not carry a sign of a small cross or a circle. Because when there is an excessive alif, there is a small cross sign over that. Or in some copies of the Holy Quran, a small circle, which is a sign of sukoon. Okay? But it is quite possible that at some places this sign is not there. So we have to remember those words. They are not so much, they are only few. So, but it is important in terms of pronunciation. And another point is that in most copies of the Holy Quran which are printed in our countries, subcontinent, it is written on the margin as well. So additional information is given on the margin as well. Okay. Now, this is one example, excessive alif in between the letters of a word. You can see the first line, the word is afa'in. Now, alif with fatha, hamza alif, fa, and then that is excessive alif. And on that excessive alif, which has been highlighted, there is a small circle on that one. And this is an indication and information to us that this excessive alif must not be recited. Okay, it should not be recited like afa'in, but afa'in. And next, the mata is another word, and this afa'in and mata joining together, blending together, and because meme carries a tashdid, then we have to make a nasal sound about 2 seconds. Okay. And in the second line, in the bracket, you can find here, though the excessive alif has been omitted, and that will be the right pronunciation of that one. So I will do that one. Each one of you will be reciting on this one. Remember, a similar example of afa'in without this excessive alif is also in Surah Anbiya, Suratul Anbiya, chapter 21, verse 35. So at home you can make a practice, okay, and also you can teach others to make your own notes as well. So as we are reading the Holy Quran, the words of the Holy Quran, so what is the first etiquette or manner before starting the Holy Quran, Noman?
It's
Yes, seeking refuge with Allah from the accursed Satan, ta'awuz or al-ista'aza, and that is called A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim. I will do a systematic start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم
أفإن مات. Okay, if I do أفإن مات, that will be right or wrong? Wrong, okay. Now in this example I will do waqf at the end, you know, I will stop at the end, and you know that the last stroke, the stroke on the last consonant is dropped, and a conditional sukoon comes there. أَفَإِن مَّاتَ. Okay, now the second example, Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter 21, verse 35. Okay, can you find for me from the Holy Quran, chapter 21, verse number 35? Did you find?
Yes.
Okay, can you find on the margin additional information that this is Alif Zaida? Yes? Yes. So on this Alif Zaida, it is written on the margin.
Yes.
Okay. And also you can find here that in this copy of the Holy Quran, Yasran al-Quran style, there is a cross on this, you know, Alif cross, Alif Zaida. So this will not be recited. Okay. In this case, each one will be reciting these two examples from the screen. Okay, first Noman.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أفإن مت فهم
أفإن مات, because Alif is there. You know, the first excessive Alif will be dropped, but the second word Mata, this Alif will be pronounced. No, not in this case, you know, from the screen. I said from the screen.
أفإن مات
With waqf.
أفإن مات.
Now the next example, you know, which is, yes.
أفإن مت فهم الخالدون.
Okay, Anan.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أفإن مات أفإن مات أفإن مت فهم الخالدون.
Okay, Jazakumullah. Next example here in Surah Yunus, chapter 10, verse 76. Okay, and the word is mala'ihi, ila fir'auna wa mala'ihi, after mim, lam, and followed by excessive alif, and that alif carries a sign of sukoon, small circle, or a cross sometime, and in bracket the pronunciation guide has been given, ila fir'auna wa mala'i, not mala'i, ila fir'auna wa mala'i. And below on the screen you can find 4 different examples, 4 other places where the same word has appeared. So wherever the word mala'i has comes, you have to pronounce accordingly, that dropping the excessive alif which has come after lam. Okay, so I will do this one. إلى فرعون وملئه. Do that.
إلى فرعون وملئه.
إلى فرعون وملئه.
إلى فرعون وملئه.
Okay. Now, can you find an example, anyone of these four examples, Surah Al-A'raf, Surah Hud, Al-Mu'minun, Al-Qasas? Any example? Did you find? Yes. What's the page number?
345.
345 of this Muslim Quran.
Surah Al-Mu'minun.
Surah Al-Mu'minun. Okay. Ila Fir'auna wa mala'ihi. Okay. And on the margin you can find additional information about the Alif Saida. Did you find the same or another one?
I have from Surah Al-Araf.
Surah Al-Araf, chapter 7, 104. What's your page number?
It's page number 123.
123.
163.
163. Okay. And you can find additional information on the margin as well. Okay. In the same word, ila fir'auna wa mala'ihi. Okay. And on mala'ihi, on this alif, there is no sign of a small circle or a cross. But because of the rule, whether you can find a sign or not, this word will always, excessive alif will be dropped. Wa mala'i, not mala'i. All right, good. And the similar example here, min fir'auna wa mala'ihim. The same word, but the last bit has changed. Instead of mala'ihi, mala'ihim. This is a grammatical meaning in that one, is a construction structure, but the same rule will be applied here. Min fir'auna wa mala'ihim.
Min fir'auna wa mala'ihim.
Say again.
Min fir'auna wa mala'ihim.
Okay, good. Excessive alif in between the letters of a word, and this example has been taken from Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, 159. And it is very, very important to make a practice of such examples. Here, you can find here in from the Holy Quran. Now, you see that la, meaning-wise, la means not. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. This is that perfect book. There is absolutely no doubt in it. La means not. And if you drop the letter alif from la, it becomes la. La with fatha, la. And it means sure. Opposite meaning. 3-4 times it has come in Surah At-Takathur, At-Takathur, about la tus'alunna, la tarawunna. And many times as well in other portions of the Holy Quran. And it means sure. Certainly. So here, not la ilallahi tusharun. The meaning will be completely changed. And the real purport of this message will be lost. La ilallahi tuhsharun. That surely you will be gathered towards Allah. Okay? So make sure that here, though the alif is written here, and it looks like a la, but it will be pronounced la ilallah. Okay? So you say, la ilallahi tuhsharun.
La ilallahi tuhsharun.
Okay. If we do la ilallahi tusharun, that will be right or wrong? Wrong, totally wrong. Okay? So additional information should be taken care into. La ilallahi tuhsharun.